scripture is taken from James chapter 5, verses 1 through 6, and reads as follows. And I'm reading it from the Message this morning. And it says, "In a final word to you, arrogant rich, take some lessons in lament. You'll need buckets for the tears when the crash comes upon you. Your money is corrupt and your fine clothes stink. Your greedy luxuries are a cancer in your gut, destroying your life from within. You thought you were piling up wealth. What you've piled up is judgment. All the workers you've exploited and cheated cry out for judgment. The groans of the workers you used and abused are a roar in the ears of the master avenger. You've looted the earth and lived it up, but all you have to show for it is a fatter than usual corpse. In fact, what you've done is condemn and murder perfectly good persons who stand there and take it." This morning I chose to read this passage from the Message just because I loved the visuals that it gave. Sometimes you can read a passage and be like, yeah, okay, I get it. But it really, really sinks in when we have more visuals, doesn't it? When we can picture it in our minds, and we're picturing the Master Avenger. I know I grew up with my older brother being and still being a huge Avenger fan. So I have superheroes that come to my mind when I hear that passage. And when you think about it, isn't that really kind of what God is? He's our superhero. He's our Master Avenger who is going out to fight for us. In this passage, James is telling us that it doesn't matter how much money we have or how many material possessions we have, because when we die, it will all be left behind. What does matter, however, is how we live our lives and how we treat people. The only treasure worth getting is the kind that will be of use to us in God's kingdom. So don't get me wrong. Because it can seem like with reading this passage that money is the problem, and money is not the problem here. If you have money, great. It's a wonderful thing to have. It's a wonderful thing to be able to know that you don't have to struggle to pay bills, that you can help people out with your money. So money is not the source of the issue. And in fact, we're all to have money to live. We need money to be able to put food on our tables, to be able to put clothes on our backs, to be able to take care of our basic needs. We need to have money. And as a church, we are to have money to have function as well. We need to make sure that we can keep the lights on, that we have our taxes and our bills paid, which granted we're tax exempt, but still, we need to make sure that everything is being paid. All our bills are being paid. If we're having church repairs done, we need to make sure we're paying those that are doing the repairs. We have to make sure that our basic needs, our basic function is taken care of. The problem is when all we seek after is money. And then we don't take care of those around us or pay what we're supposed to pay, but instead we become greedy. We want to keep it all, and we don't want to share our wealth. It's not the money, but the love of it that is the issue and leads to evil. The love of money causes us to become greedy, constantly seeking after more, to the point that we oppress those around us in our quest for more. Sometimes we don't even realize that we're oppressing those around us because we're so seeking after the money. At work, we're fighting to climb the ladder to get more money, not necessarily caring what happens to those around us, as long as we look good and we're getting more. This passage is a warning to all of us that we are to reject the standard of the world around us and instead seek to fulfill God's standards. Instead of putting down those around us and oppressing them, we're to help them and to lift them up. The passage says, in fact, what you've done is condemn and murder perfectly good persons who stand there and take it. Those that work hard and seem to never get ahead, those are the ones that are being oppressed. And oftentimes, it's because they're so nice and all they just want to do is help those around them. And they end up being taken advantage of. During the time this passage was written, there were many people who were so poor and couldn't pay their debts to the rich that they had to, at times, sell family members, including children, into slavery just so that they could get the money needed to pay off their debt and try to get back so that they could provide food for the family, to just take care of basic needs. They did this with the full intention of one day being able to purchase their loved one back out of slavery, but knowing full well at the same time that there was a slim chance that that was ever going to happen. Knowing that their loved one who was in slavery probably wouldn't even be fed or taken care of. Those who were poor often had a hard time just putting food on their table and trying to work so that they could take care of one another. They would literally starve to death. Well, the rich continued getting richer. Well, they had enough food, more than enough food on their plates and on their tables, and they just continued getting richer and fatter, and you could tell oftentimes during this period how rich somebody was by the size of their stomach. I wish that was the case today. I really do. Unfortunately, it's not. But that's okay because we know that we aren't meant to have the riches of this earth. We aren't meant to be rich and greedy to the point where we're literally starving people to death, murdering them, so that we can feed our bellies and put money in our pockets. The rich were exploiting their employees, and none of it goes unnoticed by God. God sees all that is happening and condemns it completely. God wants us to help each other, to love each other, to show compassion and warmth to those in need. He wants us to reach out and be there for those who need help and who are suffering. God isn't asking us to give everything away so that we don't even have a roof over our heads or food on our tables. But instead, He's asking us to do all that we can to help those around us while still providing for our own basic needs. We aren't being asked to suffer, but we are being asked to be compassionate, loving children of God. Helping those in need without any strings attached. Because it's the right thing to do and because we're called to love one another. All too often, those who are poor have to jump through so many hoops to receive help. They have to give all of their personal information. They have to go and give their social security numbers for everybody in their house. They have to give birth certificates, licenses, state IDs, tax information, how much they pay on each and every one of their bills, just to apply for food stamps or government health care, or help paying their lights or heating assistance, or to get free and reduced lunch for their children at school so that their kids can eat when they're there, or even at Christmas time. They have to supply that information to get help from organizations. Now, I I do understand and fully know and see that there are people out there that do take advantage of the system, and so these checks and balances are put in place for that, but those that really need the help don't always get it because of all the demoralizing hoops they have to jump through. We as Christians are being asked to not hoard our riches, but instead help those in need. It could be as simple as giving clothes, even if they are from cleaning out our closet, to those that are in need. It could be as simple as going to the pantry and saying, you know what, I bought this and I really don't need it, or we don't like this, or I have too much of it, and putting it in a bag and taking it to the food bank or giving it to a friend that you know is in need. It's not about putting restrictions on what we do and what we give. We can't say that we will donate so much money to a cause or to a project as long as those in charge meet all of our demands. And if they don't, or we disagree on something, decide not to give it to them in the end. We need to give freely. We need to not be greedy with our money or be hoarding it, but we need to be able to give it and understand that they are going to use it where it's needed most. We need to have faith that those in charge know what they're doing. When we give money to someone in charge of a business, say for example, if we have a new roof put on our house, we pay them to do this service for us. We pay the boss. We don't pay each individual worker. We pay the boss, and we expect them to not only purchase the supplies necessary, but also pay their workers. Sometimes they have enough money set aside or enough building materials left over from another project that they can use for our home, but that money goes first to paying their employees. Are we to turn around and say, I'm sorry, you are not allowed to pay your employees. You have to purchase the things for my roof first, and whatever's left over goes there. When they have families at home that could be starving. The boss knows where it needs to go and what needs to be done, just as God knows where our gifts and our talents and our money needs to go to be able to help further his work and take care of his children. So then why does some think that when they give money to a church that they can dictate how and when it's to be used? Why do some with money think that they can run the church, and those that want to spend that person's money tell them how to spend it? I'm not saying that necessarily happens here, but I have seen it. I have seen churches, and I have heard stories from other pastors where somebody says, I will go donate money to this cause, but it has to be used in this specific way, and then, God forbid, they end up using the money or a little portion of the money in a way that person didn't want to have it used. Say when fixing the roof, they realize that the sink has a leak and they need to fix the leak in the sink before they finish fixing the roof because it's not going to rain for another week. But the sink is going to flood the room. It's about knowing the priorities, knowing where things have to go, not judging, but allowing God to be in control of all of it. Making sure basic needs are taken care of. Making sure that as a church, we aren't seeking out people and wanting them to be sitting in our pews just because they have fat wallets. Church doors are open to save souls for the kingdom and should not and cannot be purchased with anything but the blood of Jesus. As a church, we shouldn't be hoarding our money either. Yes, a church like individuals has to pay bills and we are to pay them. However, we are to use that money and go out into the world and use the money to spread the word of God and to further his kingdom and not just let it sit in the bank doing absolutely nothing. churches that are struggling to keep the doors open, or so they say. But then they have thousands upon thousands of dollars sitting in the bank. They struggle to get 5 people to sit in the pews on a Sunday morning to hear the Word of God. But they have a couple $1,000s sitting in the bank. Couldn't that money be used in so much better ways? Couldn't that money be used to help feed the poor? To help clothe them? To help provide heating assistance? To help keep someone's lights on? To help a new mother in need? To help the elderly in need? There's so many better ways to use the money than just sitting there, paying to keep the doors open, when what we're asked is to go out and spread His love. We need to love God and each other more than we are to love money and things. Things are just that. They are things. We don't need things to survive. Angel and I have been going through our stuff and cleaning out closets, and now that Viviana's getting older, looking at getting rid of baby stuff and have the abundance of it. We're looking at who we can give it to. Not who we can get the most money for it, but who needs it. And he keeps after me because sometimes I look at something and I'm like, this reminds me of when they were first born. Or I need to keep this maternity shirt, not because I'll ever wear it again, but because they were in my belly and it helps me remember what it felt like when they were kicking me. And he's like, honey, you really don't need it. It's taking up space. How many things do we have in our lives that we don't need? Not that we don't want, but that we don't need. That is just taking up the space. How much of that could we give to somebody else that does really, truly need it? The love that we show each other and have for God is what will last forever. And nothing else but that. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for supplying us with our needs and not necessarily our wants. For allowing us to be able to know that you are the Master Avenger, that you are out there fighting for us, that you love us, that you want us to fight for you as well, that you want us to share what we have, not just with money and clothes, but our knowledge and our love of you, Lord. Lord, we ask that you would be with us and that you would help us to reach out to those in need, as individuals and as a church, Lord. Help us to show your love to the world. In your name we pray. Amen. Excuse me. Now if you could stand and join me in singing our closing hymn, number 346, Now I Belong to Jesus.